Hello, this is Will from Little Angel, and today I'm going to be telling you another ancient Greek myth. This time, this is the story of how the Greek god Helios lost his job. Helios was the god of the sun, and it was his job to make the sun rise each and every morning. He had a son named Phaethon. Both father and son had curly golden hair and sparkling bright eyes, and both bragged about each other all the time. Helios thought his son was the brightest and bravest kid in the whole world. He named his son Phaethon because Phaethon meant brilliant in the ancient Greek language. Phaethon was equally proud of his dad, Helios. He thought his dad had the most important job in the whole world. If the sun did not come up, everybody would freeze. Each morning, his father Helios' servants, who were called the Hours, would harness 4 white horses to the most splendid golden chariot you ever saw. It was so splendid that it even had a nickname. The people called it the Sun Chariot. Once the golden chariot was harnessed, Helios would leap aboard and begin his perilous journey across the sky. Attached to the back of the chariot was the sun itself. Now, it's not easy to haul a burning sun behind a chariot, even a special golden chariot, without getting burnt yourself. No matter how tired he was or how jarred by the jerking of the chariot, Helios always managed to reach every corner of the earth, to bring light and warmth to all the crops, to all the people, and to everything on earth, every single day. In the evening, after Helios had tucked the sun out of sight to give it time to rekindle, he would return home, weary but content. Each evening he would gather his beloved son and his equally beloved wife and daughters, and together they would watch the moon appear in the sky. The next morning, without fail, Helios would leap again aboard his glowing chariot and fly off to bring out the sun once more. Now, Phaethon was a nice boy, but he loved to show off. He would brag about his father to anyone who would listen, and even sometimes to those who were not listening at all. He bragged about the golden chariot. He bragged about the 4 wild horses. He bragged that one day his father would let him drive the chariot across the sky. Phaethon bragged so much, after a while his friends began to scatter away as soon as he approached. They were tired of his incessant bragging, and anyway, they no longer believed him. They knew his dad brought up the sun, but they did not believe his dad would turn over such an important job to a mere boy, not even for one day, especially when he was such a little show-off. That job was too important to risk. That evening, Phaethon begged his father to let him drive. He knew he was ready. He knew he could handle the horses. He knew he could do the job without getting burnt. But mostly, he wanted to prove to his friends that his father trusted him enough to give him the reins. Finally, one evening, exhausted by his son's perpetual pleading, his father, Helios, said yes. The next morning, Phaethon eagerly climbed aboard the golden chariot. He took the reins tightly in his hands. The horses knew at once that the driver was not the capable Helios, and they jerked and reared, but Phaethon hung tightly to the reins. Phaethon caught the sun up behind him on his first swing by and began to drag the sun across the sky. Bursting with pride, he dipped down towards the earth. He wanted his friends to see him, but he flew too close. The hot sun began to dry up the oceans and the rivers and left deserts in their place. When Phaethon realized his mistake, his eyes widened with panic. He yanked the reins to pull the horses higher into the sky. The horses reared in anger at being jerked so hard, and the reins were ripped from Phaethon's hands. Now the runaway chariot tore across the sky, burning a trail behind it. A trail some call the Milky Way. Eventually, the horses slowed at last to an amble and turned towards home, eager for their oats. Far away, high on Mount Olympus, Zeus, the king of all the gods, was sitting outside on his front porch. He had been enjoying his breakfast, but now he was watching the sky. Something was definitely wrong. It looked like Helios's horses were headed for home, but it was far too early for them to go home. Could Helios have fallen asleep? Zeus hurled a lightning bolt at the chariot with incredible force. As it flew by, it hit the side of the chariot. The chariot tilted. Something or someone dropped out of the chariot and fell into the Po River, which, for anyone who is interested, stretches across the north of Italy today. Zeus called for his magical horse, Pegasus. They quickly caught up with the sweating horses of the chariot, who had nearly slowed to a stop. Pegasus took the lead. Zeus grabbed the reins, and together Zeus, Pegasus, and the 4 white horses finished dragging the sun around the earth. By the time they had tucked the sun in for the night, Zeus was in a raging temper. Pegasus had been nipped 3 times, which did not help matters at all, so Zeus roared towards Helios's palace. Once Zeus understood that the young boy Phaethon had been driving, and had probably been what Zeus had noticed dropping out of the chariot and falling into the Po River, Zeus sent Hermes, who was the fastest god, to organise a search party. But it was no use. Phaethon had disappeared. As for Helios and his family, their sadness was great. Some say his daughters cried so much that Zeus, as punishment for Helios's bad judgment, changed his daughters into the poplar trees that line the Po River today. Some insist it's only the wind, but others say that you can still hear them crying, even today. Helios continued to bring out the sun, but his heart wasn't in it. He flew too high and let clouds cover the earth. The earth suffered gloomy day after gloomy day. Sometimes Helios even flew too low and burned rivers down to little creeks. Finally, Zeus had to intercede. He made Helios give up his job, the job that had made him so proud, and gave the job of bringing out the sun each day to his own son, Apollo. Sad but determined, Helios spent the rest of his days, and he had a lot of free time now, looking for his long-lost son, Phaethon. And that is the story of how Helios lost his job. The end.